Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's 1871 podcast episode. And we weren't actually due to have an episode tonight, but we thought it's coming up to a crucial time of the season for Reading. It's felt like that for a while, actually, but we decided to have an episode tonight, and we thought it'd be worth catching up on all things Reading FC. So it's myself and Johnny tonight. So hello, Johnny, how are you?
Good mate, yeah. Another fun time in Reading history, isn't it?
Yes, it's interesting times, isn't it? So, look, we're bringing you this bonus episode tonight that we recorded yesterday. Obviously, we're recording it now as we speak, but by the time it goes out, it'll be yesterday that we did it. So, if there have been any developments today, i.e., Monday, with point deductions and so on, anything like that, we'll be chatting about those on tomorrow's episode. So, Tuesday night's episode, and that will be a focus on Reading FC women's season. And our special guest will be Lindsay Hooper, who's the lead WSL presenter for Sky Sports. So looking forward to that one. We touched on sort of the Reading women season a couple of times last series. So we had Natasha Dowie, didn't we, Johnny, as a guest?
Yeah.
Really good to speak to her, and we did a bit of a roundup, but we thought it'd be good to have a focus on the Reading women. So that's what we'll be doing tomorrow night. But here's what we'll be discussing on tonight's episode: the 1-1 draw against Hull on Saturday, the current Reading FC situation, including how things stand, games coming up, injuries, and so on. The manager situation at Reading, I'm sure that's going to take up quite a bit of our focus tonight because everyone's got an opinion about that. So you'll hear ours. And we'll also be seeing if we can find anything positive to salvage to salvage from what is basically a very poor run of form by anyone's standards. So, Johnny, let's start off with the most recent game, a 1-1 draw at home to Hull. So let's kind of summarise it. Obviously, we got a draw, so we broke the losing run. But it is now a point in 5 games. That's the current form. Liam Moore, Tom McIntyre went off injured. Andy Carroll got the equaliser. And Cesare Casadei seems to be making a positive impact. It looked like a 3-5-2 formation or something like that.
Yeah. 5-3-2, 3-5-2 kind of
Yeah.
slips into one or the
So,
other, doesn't it?
so it sort of felt a little bit defensive in a way.
Yeah.
But what do you take from that, Johnny? Because it's a draw at home to Hull. We've only got 1 point in 5 games, but it's an improvement on the previous 4 games. What's your kind of feeling, having had time to reflect on the game?
Like it's again, the way that Ince talks about it, it's like, well, we played a decent team. We've got a point. Hull are mid-table. You know, you're going into games playing like, and I wasn't at the game. I've spoke to people, and it was very negative. You get the goal back, and you're thinking, like, push on second half, but then he doesn't make any subs, pressures, bring the fresh legs on. He seems very reluctant to play any of the younger players. Um, give them a chance. It's like we'll stick with what we do, which is Andy Carroll, and we play this way to the 88th minute. And I think somebody summed it up pretty well was when we had the free kick just before the final whistle. We passed the ball back, and then the whistle blew. It was like any other team would have lumped it in the box and hoped for a chance. And to me, that sums up the mindset of Paul Ince. He's a decent guy. He's done what he's done with us. But yesterday, he seemed proud. Like, the players are tired. The players are tired. And so, well, if they're tired, change them. We had Noel Hunt on talking about 3 or 4 of the younger players in the under 23s that he feels are ready for the first team and have featured this season. What have you got to lose in a game like that, where one of them might go, I want to be a hero. I'll take the chance and do something. But clearly, we've had the injuries with Shane Long now and Liam Moore, Tom McIntyre. We're going to have to rely on these kids. for the rest of the season in some form, like we did at the start, and they did all right at the start of the season. So I don't understand his mindset, to be honest.
One thought for you, Johnny, is that we don't know. We haven't had an opportunity to speak to Paul Ince to see what he actually thinks. So we can only kind of give our opinion, give our thoughts in some way, if we can represent what Reading fans think, whether it's positive, negative, or otherwise. But do you think it is as simple as Paul Ince just going with what he thinks is his best team, which is kind of, in a way, that's the way it should be, and that means that's why Andy Carroll starts? Is it? Do you think it's as simple as that? He's picking what he thinks is his best team.
Well, he obviously thinks he is because he's picking the team. But if you look at Nesta Guinness Walker as a classic example of a young player who he either doesn't trust him one way or the other, but he offers something that Baba Rahman, Tom Mack doesn't on the left wing back. Defensively he's not great, but again, we're not defensively great as a team. You want to pick a fault of a player, we could probably go through every player in the team and go, well, they've got this as a weakness, that's a weakness. But he's got something about him that an attacking sense that we miss in the other positions. You've got the new laddie in say Chelsea loanee who's looking good, week by week. That's a very good positive that we got in the club. But I just find it, yes, we all know about the embargo. Yes, we all know about possible points deduction. Yes, we all know about, we can't pick the, sign players. We get that with 38 games into the season. Change the mindset of what we're doing. Like, this is it now. This is 10, 8, 9 cup finals left of the season. We need to be on the front foot. We need to be positive. It's what it is. We all know what it is. We're in it together. Let's get a siege mentality in together in a positive way, not a negative way, and look forward and start trying. The crowds are dwindling. That's another big issue. So the players aren't going to be getting, when we've had big crowds, as we did, I think, the Blackpool game, when we had the kids in, there was a 17,000 there, I think, and, that helps. So that, getting the fans behind the team, but he's not helping doing that with the way things are, the way he talks, the way he sets up. At home, we're playing defensive football.
Yeah, but also it's worth saying that you're going to get bigger crowds if at least one of the following two things is what you're going along to see. So a winning side, at the moment, I got asked by someone if I wanted to go to the Sheffield United game, and I did, but I couldn't in the end. And I'm kind of thinking, I wasn't that confident that we'd get anything from the game. Maybe a draw if we do well based on current form. So that sort of thing is what affects crowds, goals, and also the way the team's playing. If a team is playing good football, dynamic football, there's energy, and they're a bit unlucky to sort of draw games instead of win games, or maybe lose a game and instead of drawing a game with a bit of bad luck or whatever, and actually doing quite well at home, then at least one of those two things give you a motivation to come along. And there will be, of course, those fans. They're going to go anyway, season ticket holders. But that's what fans want to see. They want to see the team winning, the team playing entertaining football. And obviously, neither of those things are happening at the moment. So the crowd situation is not a surprise, is it? But let's kind of look at, what positives are there. So Cesare Casadei's come in, and actually we had Reading's commercial manager on, Tim Kilpatrick, and I think at least one other person has pointed out all the restrictions that Reading have been under. Actually, you could say, well, look, the fact that we're not already doomed to relegation in some ways is a positive because of how restrictive it's been for Reading with the transfer embargo and all that. And, he's one of those positives that we can take from Saturday's game. But of course, then you get the negatives with Liam Moore getting injured, Tom McIntyre getting injured, and let's actually break it down to the facts. We're now 9 points above relegation. So if you look at it as glass half full, we've moved a point closer to safety. But then Huddersfield won. So, if we are getting that 6 point deduction, and it looks like we are, then we're 3 points above relegation. Obviously Blackpool are showing a bit of form. Huddersfield are showing a bit of form. They won away to Millwall on Saturday. 8 games to go. We've got 1 point in 5 games. So we're losing away, and we've only got 1 point, in the last however many, is it 3 home games?
Yeah.
So we've lost 2. Okay, Sheffield United, Millwall, difficult team to beat. Kind of, at least we got a point on Saturday, but I don't know. It's now. I still think we'll stay up. I still think we probably only need, maybe a win and a couple of draws. I think we're more than capable of achieving that between now and the end of the season. I'm still feeling quite confident that we'll stay up. Less so than I was, when I first started making that statement. But I still think we'll do it. Bristol City away next. We know what Reading's away form is like. What I want to ask you, Johnny, is how much of a danger is it that Reading are actually going to go down this season?
The way that it's at the minute, Mark, the way I look at it, and I think other people are the same, we're sleepwalking towards relegation. You're looking at the way we're playing, you're looking at the way we're going into games, the last few games. You want to see a team on the front foot. You want to see a team going for it. He's talking about a point at Hull like we've won the World Cup. We've got some tough games coming up. We've got Wigan and we've got Huddersfield. The way things are, they could be sick. They could be relegation survival for either side. So they're going to be tough games. But the way we've now got a window 2 weeks before the next game. I'm honestly not convinced that Ince is the right person to get us through for this next block, because we need somebody that's going to trust the younger players. I don't think he does. I don't think he's buying into that. He's shown that by his substitutions. He's kind of, I know we're limited again, but it's kind of Andy Carroll's his go-to person all the time, which is great. But that comes at a cost, because we don't play a different type of football. We've got Tom Ince on the pitch, who at times is so petulant, it's unreal, and he seems to be immune from criticism. I don't think it's a healthy place at the minute for where we're going. Like you said, if you lose a game and you go at a team and you hit the bar, you hit the post, you didn't get the luck. Everyone goes, that's football, fine. When you're at home in a game like yesterday, and he's saying that the players are out on their feet 15 minutes to go, you then risk losing the game because you're keeping tired players on. You're risking more injuries for keeping players on. So you've got young lads that, if they're good enough to be in the squad, they're good enough to play for 15 minutes. So what message are you then telling them that I don't think you're good enough for this team? So I don't think, that you put all that together, and obviously, I think there's a lot of fans that are very negative about him now, as in where we're going as a club. That obviously, all the stuff with the points deduction hanging over us, not knowing maybe it's this week, whatever. I'm not filled with much confidence the way things are that things are going to change on the pitch, because the way he's setting up, the way he's talking, the way we're playing has been the same the last few games, and he's not even trying to change that as the manager to give it a different buzz.
Yeah, because we had a great chat with Leroy Lita, and he was saying, one of the secrets to the success of that team, the 106 team, is that you had hungry players, and even when Reading clinched promotion, they weren't satisfied with that. They wanted to win every game. They went into games with that belief, that kind of energy. um, dynamism, and
And the fringe players that played a big role, didn't they, when they stepped in
yeah,
when needed?
yeah, and you just don't get that sense, do you? You use the word sleepwalking, and I think a lot of Reading fans would agree with you, and I'm sure players would get offended if you accuse them of not trying hard enough, but you just a lot of the Reading fans would say you're just not getting that sense, and whether that comes from the manager or how much responsibility you put on individual players for that, on the captain, and so on. You're just not getting a sense of, we had Tim Kilpatrick on, the current commercial manager at Reading, head of commercial, and he said, the players will be trying everything, but the fans want to see evidence of that. That's good to hear that, if that is genuinely the case. And, no player wants to, unless they have got some sort of ulterior motive and things are going really badly and the manager's lost the changing room or whatever. But generally speaking, players, you want to win games. You don't want to keep losing games. So I get all of that. But you're not, the fans are seeing what they're seeing. And a lot of fans are saying that we're not, at least if we're seeing that energy and that commitment to the 50-50s and actually that effort. And then if we lose and we've been unlucky, or that's one thing, but we're losing, we're not playing well, and some of the players are, you can see there are certain players that are putting in the effort, but collectively it just doesn't look great at the moment, does it? That, aside from the results, Reading aren't playing very well. And let's talk about the manager situation now, because there are a lot of fans who want Paul Ince to go now and get someone else in. And actually, what very often happens, I think it happened at Everton when Sean Dyche came in, you get a bounce, what they call a bounce, and you win a game. And that one win could be what Reading need to stay up, because I think it is all about Reading staying up.
And momentum, isn't it? Football's about momentum, and
Yeah.
you change approach.
Yeah, and it will bring some different ideas. We don't, if Paul Ince does go, then what happens to Tom Ince? Does it matter? Do we, because if you like players that we've had on, such as Leroy Lita, you do have a feel-good factor and that confidence that helps you as a player, helps you as a team. And if you've got everyone on the same page, everyone pulling in the right direction, you just don't really get that feeling about Reading at the moment. And I think, so let's discuss the manager situation. So I even saw a comment that, Reading are going down. We're, like you said, we seem to be sleepwalking towards that. Someone actually said, that's not the worst thing in the world to happen. And when I say this person said this and this person said that, I'm referring to things that have been said on the various sort of Reading fan groups on Facebook and Twitter and all that sort of thing. Yeah. So I saw someone say, I think actually, I think now is the time for the future of the club. If we do go down in the long term, we may well benefit. It might take us a while to come back, but then you get that, we remember back to the 90s. And
we did the same thing, didn't we? We went down.
Same thing. So we went down. The same thing happened with the Premier League. 2 seasons of the Premier League, went down, and then went back up again. And that does happen, but it kind of is getting quite difficult to do that now, even going down from the Championship.
That's what I was saying though, Mark. I was thinking back to '97, the last season at Elm Park, when we got relegated down to League One, and at the new stadium, and that took us a while to.
But then you start again, don't you? And if you look at, so let's look at successful Reading teams of the past and the managers. So you go back to the 80s. Ian Branfoot had a very particular style, and he went to Southampton and he was hated for it. It didn't work. But at Reading, at that time in Reading's history, it worked really well. So it was a particular style of football, not to everyone's liking, but we were winning games,
Yeah.
and that was brilliant to be a fan there. The record-breaking Roars. So then we went into the 90s. We had Mark McGee came in. He was player manager, and I think what worked really well there, it wasn't just Mark McGee as manager, it was Colin Lee as well as
Yeah.
assistant. We've got Colin on next week as a guest, so we're going to talk to him about that. So, and then you had, I think, the start of Reading moving towards their journey, if you like, towards the Premier League was possibly started by Alan Pardew.
Yeah, definitely.
Some would say it started before then, but I think Alan Pardew was the manager who took it to the next level. And you had the Martin Allen influence and that sort of thing. And then, of course, it was Steve Coppell, Brian McDermott. What is it about those managers? What did they do differently? It was to do with recruitment. It was to do with motivating the players individually. It was to do with having a game plan tactically. Now, you can't level any criticism really against Paul Ince for the first one about the recruitment, because that's something that he inherited, and we seem to be moving in the right direction. And you could say that, look, what the restrictions he's had to work with last season when he came in and this season, do we actually have to give him some slack? Because if he does avoid relegation, then you could say, well, look, it's job done. But I mean, I think you've answered this question already, Johnny. Do you think it would be better for Reading if Paul Ince stayed on as manager at the end of the season, and let's keep our fingers crossed, or should he go now? Someone else come in, and then we hope that we get that bounce factor and do what we need to do. Because the other thing to think about is Paul Ince a long-term solution for Reading anyway? What's your views on what you think will happen, what should happen?
But one thing I can definitely say, he's not the long-term future of the club. Whatever happens at the end of the season, we stay up.
Why is that though? Tell me why.
I just don't think he's the right fit for what we need as a club, going ahead and having someone. He's been out of the game 8 years. You all know that. Blah, blah, blah. I just don't personally. It's all about opinions. We could probably disagree. I just don't think the way he does things, it doesn't sit right for where the club needs to be going in the future. Short term, to the end of the season, and people are going, "Oh, can we afford to sack him with all the financial?" I don't know about that, but like, if it sits under the embargo, whatever you want to call it, we've got people inside the club that could do the job if he went. We've got Mark Bowen, been there, done that. We've got Noel Hunt. What to me, whoever it is, to me, it sounds like in that change room that the players are scared to do whatever to be able to show their own ability. It's very like someone was saying yesterday, like even basic passing is not happening. Players look unhappy. Players don't look like they're able to express themselves, enjoy their football. You want someone to believe in them, and I'm not sure this is happening. We've had the aftermatch stuff where it's that's not my team out there, that's not there. That might work for one game when you want a response, but when you're getting that all the time, to me, it's very negative. The setup's negative. His mindset is negative. We all know, like I said, repeat myself, that we all know what the situation is with the club, but we don't need to keep hearing it. You're the manager. Do something positive. Make people support you. Derby did it last season with Rooney. They were like that siege mentality where they went on a run of games where the fans got behind them, even though they're in the most impossible situation to stay up. They actually didn't. They weren't far off in the end because
but they did get relegated.
They did, but they had 21-point deduction, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
That's true. That's true. So,
but that belief and that energy, that togetherness, I think that's the thing. Well, I think it's not there. The togetherness isn't there between fans, players, management.
Because it was with Mark McGee's team, Mark McGee and Colin Lee, it was with that team. It was certainly Alan Pardew had his own style as a manager, but the sort of players you had there, you had the likes of Adi Williams,
You had leaders.
Bob Parkinson, Nicky Forster. You
You
had
had Mertz.
yeah, and then obviously Steve Coppell, Brian McDermott. So look, yes or no answer from you, Johnny. Should Paul Ince go now?
Yes.
And so what's your main reason for why you think he should go now?
Because it's not working, and it hasn't worked for a while.
1 point
I
in
get,
5 games.
huh?
1 point in 5 games.
Yeah, like we're at a situation where beggars can't be choosers. We need to stay up. I'm not convinced because the way that we've and the start of the season started well. Since the World Cup, we haven't been great. But that seems to happen with Reading almost every season. We start well and then fade apart and get found out. What do you want to call it? It's become we don't look like we have you know we're not trying to be positive. That's what we went out in a game. We start the game like up to Saturday. We had one shot in 3 games. That's just not good enough. Like we have got decent players. For all the restrictions that we had, you look at the squad. They're good enough players to keep us in the championship. The likes of
The,
Andy Carroll.
the other thing that's worth bearing in mind is, like every team has injury issues. Reading, some more than others, and Reading have had problems. 2 more went off injured on Saturday. McIntyre, who you would say is a key player for Reading, of course. Liam Moore went off injured. Obviously, you've had Loom got sent off, didn't he, against Blackburn? So that's a suspension. So that hasn't helped. But I've got 2 more questions for you, Johnny, about this situation. 3 actually. So first, number 1 is, do you think? So you've already said you think Paul Ince should go now. Do you think it's an interim manager until the end of the season?
Yeah, I think it has to. If he does go, and I'm not convinced he will. What I think and what the club thinks is different. I can't see. I think it'd be hard for somebody external coming in trying to change things. Like people have talked about ex-legends like Murty and whatever coming in, not knowing the team, not knowing, trying to change things in 2 weeks to get things going. It could work. I'm not saying, but I think when you've got someone in the club who knows the younger players, because the injuries we've had. I don't know what we've done, how many windows, how many mirrors we've broken, how many lads we've walked under. But that's the problem with the whole embargo of getting free transfers and the amount of injuries that's built up. And we're going to have to rely on the younger players. So we need someone that's going to believe in them, because there's one out there. There's a player in that under-23s team that can make a difference to this team. You've seen glimpses of it.
Yeah, that could be. He could score a goal that could be the difference that keeps Reading up. And also, if I was thinking about the situation at Spurs when I think it was Ryan Mason came in. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might have been when Jose Mourinho got the sack.
Yeah.
Ryan Mason came in as sort of temporary manager, interim manager, whatever you want to call him, knowing full well that he was just an interim manager and then someone else was coming in. If you bring someone in externally and they keep Reading up, you could say, well, look, if he's the right fit for the future and he keeps Reading up, then we'll consider him. But you've got, like you said, you've got Mark Bowen who could step in. I don't think Noel Hunt is experienced enough. You mentioned him. If Ince goes, Alex Ray will go.
Yeah.
So here's my next question. You've said you're not convinced that Paul Ince will be replaced. The story came out about the keeping tabs on Murty. We don't know how much truth there was in that or what that means Is that for a future manager? Is that
Mm.
an imminent possibility, etc.? But a lot of fans, I think, those who are kind of a bit more supportive rather than fully against Paul Ince being the Reading manager, would say, and do you kind of understand this argument, Johnny, that if Paul Ince keeps Reading up, does he deserve to stay on as manager?
I look, the club's in such a mess that nothing's really a fair argument. If you're sitting on both sides, isn't it? The club needs a reset in the summer. Whatever happens, whether we go up, whether we stay up, go down, we can't
Going
keep.
up. By the way, we're not going up. That's not
No,
not.
no, no, no. Like we can't keep doing what we've been doing for the last few years, which is gambling on these managers and hoping that something works and something comes out of it. I think like behind the scenes, the Brian Carey, Mark Bowen, that last summer's recruitment under all the restrictions was probably one of the best summers we've had because they actually had to
Also,
make an effort.
yeah, and also the accounts for last year came out in the last few days, didn't they?
Mm.
And the situation, it doesn't look good still, but actually it's not as bad as it was from the year previously. And I think some lessons have been learned. So it does feel a little bit like we're moving in the right direction. And I think it's all about, I think it's in stages. So this stage that we're in now is we get to the end of the season, we see where we are at the end of the season, and then there's a reset. And I think we will see an improvement from the summer onwards. That's my gut feeling. That's what I believe will be the case.
Oh, definitely. I think because we won't have, we've learned the lesson with paying stupid wages for players. Most of those will probably be gone.
Yeah,
You want hungry. Again, it's going back to the old time of finding the right hungry young players and having an idea of what we're actually aiming towards. Yeah, the embargoes, you can't pick, you can't build a team in the style of whatever. If it is Ince, and if Ince was the manager, if his style of whatever he wants, or if it's
yeah,
anyone else, they've got a style of playing. They want that bloke for this and that bloke for that. We can't do that under this embargo. We haven't been able to do that for 3 years. So all the managers have had that impacted on them. And I get that. I'm not slating. It's been difficult for all of them. But at the minute, we're in crisis mode and we need
yeah.
different.
I said I had three more questions, so this is my third one. Can you see? I think this is a quite an easy answer, and some people will say, "Well, why are you even asking this?" Can you see any scenario where Reading get relegated and Paul Ince stays on as manager?
No, I can't. It just isn't.
Would it surprise you?
Unless he's got a deal that he has to stay if Tom stays. Like
Would
that's
it surprise you though if that happened?
nothing surprises me in football anymore, Mark. To be honest, because it's just so bizarre. With the way that the game's going in general, but for Reading more importantly, if that's what's going to happen, then fans aren't going to watch the team play. I don't think under him. And if we're looking ahead to wherever we are next season, I think people want to see someone that they believe in and identify with, someone that you go, yeah, we can see where this journey's going. We saw the journey with back in, with McGee. We saw the journey with Pardew until he went on gardening leave and went to West Ham. We saw the journey with Copper. We saw the journey with McDermott. Have we seen any journey since then? Fleetingly, probably Adkins, the first season, fleetingly with Yap Stam. The rest of the time, it's been golden gamble of a manager and different things and how many other players are coming through. And there's no progression. It's just get these players in. And that's why we're the mess, we're spending
I
stupid
think,
wages.
yeah, I think for me, Paul Ince is an interim manager, even though he isn't that entitled. I think he's an interim manager in the fact that Reading have been in a very difficult situation, the transfer embargo, and he's been firefighting since he came in.
Oh, absolutely. He's done what he's
That's
done,
what
and he
it's
must
been
be under
about.
huge pressure. It's a
Yeah.
horrible job.
So if I've kind of asked you this question on a previous episode, Johnny, but whether he goes now or at the end of the season, if he does go before the start of next season. What sort of manager do Reading need next? What is the mould of that manager? What boxes does that manager need to tick?
I think a lot depends on what we're allowed to do again. I mean, I think most people are hoping that in the summer we're allowed to start again, as in we're allowed to sign players and we're allowed to do things like all the other clubs are allowed to do. If we're allowed to do that, and who knows with the football league because they make it up as they go along, then you want a manager. I think you want a manager that is passionate. You want a manager that wants to prove himself to a
And
point.
you want a manager with a plan, I think.
Yeah, you want a manager who's got an identity. Someone you don't need a manager that's been around the block. You don't need someone just using the name. You don't need the Steve Bruce's, Mick McCarthy's, whoever been there, done that. We need to start again. Pardew was a very good example of that. He was a hungry young manager who came in, the whole spirit, tenacity, flair approach. Martin Allen came in with his, the sidekick. It worked. Then he went, Martin Allen doesn't work anymore for me. I need to move on. He moved to the next level. If we have to resit that whole project and do it again differently, then so be it. But we don't get that information from the senior management of the club.
Yeah.
We're not getting what's happening. We I
Um,
think fans would go like if someone told us like this is that we've made our mistakes. This is where we're starting again next summer. We've got a new plan. This is what we're doing. Mark Bowen comes out and says, right, this is we've learned. We're not going to waste money. And then people go, okay, right, yeah, we're not going to go, win the league. But like I think we were talking about the other day, Reading for years were building step by step when they got promoted from Division One. For years, back in the 2000s, we were around the playoffs. We were always in with a shout. We may not have done it. We may have got in, but you went, yeah, we're daring to dream and daring to believe because you could see it in the team. The team gave us there was a united spirit and a team that you believed in,
well, I
good or
think
bad.
on that point, Johnny, I think what's happening now, and what happened last season is a result of it is the consequences of whatever you want to call it, bad management or whatever. So I think, probably most, if not all, Reading fans will be looking ahead to the summer as a reset. And I think, I think you need a manager that comes in with a plan. And by that, what I mean is his own way that he wants to do things. But that's got to fit in with the way that, Reading have got to have a strategy as a club, and the manager's got to fit in with that. So the manager puts his own stamp on it and plays whatever formation, whether it's a process of how he brings young players in, or whatever it is. But that manager has got to fit within a plan that people like Mark Bowen are working on. And also, you look at what's happened with Patrick Vieira at Palace. And Palace, can you believe this? They're considering, if you believe the reports, they're considering bringing back someone who's 75.
Yeah.
And you look at Lampard, you look at Gerrard, Rooney. Okay, yeah, he had a difficult job at Derby, but these great players very often don't make good managers.
No.
And then what happens? I think Sean Dyche is a good manager because actually, yes, Burnley got relegated, but I think what his success was that he took Burnley up in the first place. So yes, I do think he deserved a chance at a club like Everton. But like you said, like Neil Warnock, they've been around the block. And as Dylan points out, you seem to have more chance of getting another job in the Championship or League One or whatever if you've been relegated. It doesn't seem to. So my worry with this story about Graham Murty, we love Graham Murty. He's a Reading legend, of course, as a player, and yes, he's got experience of managing Rangers. But is he really? Is there a danger? And I think the answer to this is yes. By the way, that he could be to Reading what Frank Lampard was to Chelsea. I think there is that danger because and yes, managers, they've got to start somewhere and they deserve a chance. And yes, he's managed Rangers, but again, I've been seeing comments on social media, and I completely understand this, that we can't do this on sentiment. That's not the way. That's not the
No,
way to
absolutely.
a new manager. So I think, what would make sense for me is if there's I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but if there's a manager that's done really well with a club in League One and it's like a progressive step, um, a manager that has had experience of managing in the Championship, and if that so happens to be, someone with a Reading connection, yeah, Phil Parkinson would be, I think, a good choice as Reading's next manager because he's done his apprenticeship and he's now manager of Wrexham. They look like they're going to get promoted. He's got a lot of experience behind him, and he's got that Reading connection. But I think it has to be in that order. I don't think it's going to be Phil Parkinson, by the way,
No.
but somebody like that. So yes, he's a Reading legend, but that's secondary to him being the type of manager that I think would work well for Reading, because also the players would respect him for the fact that he's, had that experience as a manager and been relatively successful during that time. I mean, Keith Curle's another one. Again, I'm not suggesting, and I don't think it will be Keith Curle, but he's had success as a manager lower down the leagues, ex-Reading player. But I think it's got to be that way round. If they so happen to have played for Reading, been a Reading legend, whatever. So I don't think you can give the job to somebody like A.D. Williams or Mick Goodin because they've got to tick some boxes first rather than picking them mainly because they're a Reading legend. Do you know what I mean?
I think there has to be like if you want to see a plan in place. So if they went right, well, we've got obviously say Gilksy on the coaching side, you said okay, you had whatever ex-legend of Reading that you want to pick as part of a coaching squad, and you're going right. Well, okay, well, we're seeing where this is going. There's a plan. They've thought about it. They've actually the last 6 months that they've gone out and they've actually looked at who was the best person for the job. Then they've gone and got them. You go, okay, well, they've actually thought about this for the last however many years. It comes across that they haven't really thought about the managers. It's just let's just stick a hand in the pot, pick one out, see if it works, and then you've had, you have Javajong, the super agent, involved with
because
the
he's
club.
been pushed by an agent, and
Yeah,
it's got to be the other way around, hasn't it? And actually, I can't personally. My gut feeling is we'll never see Dylan Kerr as Reading
no,
manager.
no.
I think that's a really interesting point though. Reading bring in Paul Ince, who hasn't been a manager for 8 years, hasn't really been a successful manager, hasn't been a manager at any club for any length of time. I think this is his longest managerial role, isn't it?
Yep.
But you look at Dylan Kerr. Yes, it's been in South Africa, it's been in Kenya, it's been in, and I'm not for 1 minute saying it should be Dylan Kerr. I don't know. I'm just saying it's got to be the right strategy. But Dylan Kerr, he's won trophies. He's gone into clubs that are in the relegation zone. He's kept them up, and he's done that in several different countries, in several different environments where it's a different culture. So it's Vietnam, it's Kenya, it's South Africa, and so that would make more sense for me. Not because he used to play for Reading, but whoever it is, that would make more sense for me than bringing someone in who's been out of work for 8 years and didn't really. I don't know. I can't remember what Paul Ince achieved as a manager. Can you?
What a huge amount. I think and it was 8 years ago. It's not like he's been in management 8 years since, and he's been at different clubs and he's done his time like Warner.
Now, Velko Paunovic, he won the what was it? The under-20s.
Yeah,
What was it? Or the
yeah,
Euros?
yeah,
Serbia, wasn't it?
yeah,
So you can kind of you sort of go, okay, well, yes, he's won something. Um, so you can sort of see the logic in that. But Paul Ince, it seems a his criteria, the boxes that he ticked to get that managerial job, if you look at it logically, is that he's had some experience as a manager with, I think it's 5 different clubs. So
mm,
yeah, that's a box ticked experience. He's a well-known name, which seems to get people jobs.
yeah,
Lampard, Gerrard, Vieira.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yes, he's ticked a couple of boxes, but not enough for me. Um, so I think you do have to say, and this is what we've mentioned Brighton, we've mentioned Brentford as
Mm,
sort of good kind of models and templates in terms of how they do things. And you need to, the starting point has to be, this is our strategy. So where are we looking to go? We want to get back to the Premier League. So what's the starting point? So you build a house, you put the foundations in
yeah,
place, you start a business, and I know a bit about that with, my experience. Um, you've got to put the foundations in place. You can't run before you can walk,
no,
and we hope that that's happening already at Reading. So have have the strategy in place. Mark Bowen, director of football, sporting director, whatever he's called. Um, Obviously, you've got to take into account what's going on with the club, but have that strategy in place, and that strategy includes this is the type of manager that this he's got to tick all of these boxes. So he's got to have this type of experience. Um, whatever that is, and then you bring. So if Graham Murty fits that mold, great,
yeah. Do you
fine.
want someone that's good at bringing young players through? Do you want someone that's knowledgeable of the game, has contacts in the game, isn't it? I'm sure there's
It's
so
got to
many
be
different
someone. It's
scenarios.
got to be someone who fits the plan.
Yeah, but
That's it.
I don't think there's ever been a plan. I think that's the issue, Mark, isn't it? We don't feel, no Reading fans feels like there's been a plan for years, and there needs
Because
to be
I
one.
think the owner's situation has not helped with that. Obviously, Zingarevic and all of that stuff that went on. Um, it seems to be that there was this idea that Zingarevic was a Reading fan, but I think it was just the fact that he studied at Reading University or something, wasn't it? Was he really a Reading fan? And it's just somebody who wants to buy a football club. And we've talked about the difference between someone like Sir John Madejski, who really cares about Reading, the community, and overseas owners who are interested in getting involved in football, buying a club. And Reading's not available, but Oxford United's available or
And
Rotherham's available.
there's
It's
the other thing with it,
different.
Mark, as well. Like on the other side, if we got relegated, would the owner go, "Oh, enough"? That's a big question as well, isn't it? For another day, maybe. But if we're one league further away from the Premier League, would he go, "I'm not doing this anymore"? He's already had 2 clubs fold under him in Europe. Is that a situation? Because we are in
Yeah.
financially not in a great position.
And why would it be different with Reading?
Yeah, like what have we got to offer if we're a League One team? It's a worry, and I think it's a worry for a lot of fans. Owners come and go, managers come and go, players come and go. For fans like yourselves, for all of the fans, it's our club, it's our community, it's our home, it's the team that we follow. You see fans that aren't going anymore, that are local, that season ticket holders because they've had enough, and that's wrong. It's not some. We need a restart. We need a change. We need passion. We need clear direction. We need a future, and it needs to happen. And it has to happen this summer.
The
We
start the
cannot
starting
do
point
this.
is starting point has got to be the strategy. It's got to be let's
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
foundations right and
yeah,
give the fans a reason to come to games.
yeah,
Whether,
yeah,
whether that's we've got a team that could win games, if we're at least be competitive, at least give the fans a reason to come along, whether it's entertaining football, players like when Leroy Lita came in, that hunger.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And no
that's
one's
the
expected. Well,
minimum
apart
you
from
want to see.
2005, you're not expected to win every game. We only lost two, but normal football terms, no one. It's football. What you want is to see a team on the pitch. You go, yeah, that's my team. That's who I believe in. And I'm not critical of individuals in the teams. You've got lads from Reading playing for it. It just doesn't seem a happy place,
Yeah,
and it doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon. So the manager always gets the blame. So in this situation, it's the same for me. So they need to be unleashed. They need someone to go, right, lads, go out there and play, go and express yourselves, go and enjoy yourselves. If we lose, we lose. But the fans will go, yeah, look at that. Somebody's going out and trying to win the game, trying to
yeah.
play, trying to enjoy themselves. And we're not seeing that. We haven't seen that at all.
Do you think, Johnny, because there's been this talk about a disconnect between the club and the fans, right? Do you think that a lot of fans feel there's kind of some sort of lack of identity as a not as a Reading fan, because actually a lot of the Reading fans have got more identity, Reading Football Club identity than a lot, a lot of the players on the pitch at times.
Yeah.
We've got people like Tom McIntyre back in, in the days of when Michael Gilks was playing. He's like a part of the reason he's a Reading legend is because he came through the Reading. He was at Reading a long time. He's still involved at Reading now. So there is a small element of that, but it doesn't matter whether you've got like one or two players that came through the Reading youth system and the rest are people like Andy Carroll or whatever. It's when you had the 106 team, there was an identity about Reading, but it feels like that's been lacking since the Sir John Medeski days, doesn't it, really?
Well, I think because the identity came from the top. The identity was Sir John, the the management, through that era, because there's a few different managers you believed in. You had leaders on the pitch that even in the not the greatest of times, you had guys like Parky, who you mentioned was a leader, and he would run through brick walls for the team, even when we weren't playing well. Then
Yeah.
when we were more successful, you had guys again that you went, they give everything for this team, but they played as a team. There was no one player that was better than another. They were a collective
Phil
unit.
Parkinson, A.D. Williams, people like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and even like the lesser names, if you like, guys like Nicky Shaw or Eva Sonks, all these guys would stand up for the team. They had that. We're Reading and we'll take anyone on, and you watched them and you believed in them. Yeah, we didn't always win, but they went against the biggest teams and they gave them a hell of a game. Even if
Yeah.
we didn't win, you went, geez, I'm proud to be a Reading fan because they've left everything on that pitch for the team.
Yeah.
And you go, like, that's all you ask as a fan. And again, we know what the circumstances are with the club. We're seeing bits of people's efforts and whatever, but it's just not in a great place. And yeah, there's a big reset ahead. 2 months time, we know that
Yeah.
the short term future is a real scary place because they're
Yeah.
hanging over the edge of the cliff. They're going, geez, are
On
we?
the edge, on the edge. Well, we're on the cliff edge. At least we're on the top of the cliff at the
Yeah, and
moment.
it could be worse.
Yeah.
That's the downside. We could be in the bottom three. We could be bottom 6 points off. We're not, but I don't see a dynamic changing anytime soon unless
Right,
something changes.
let me put it to you like this then. So I want to hear from you. Do you think Reading will stay up? And then if Reading do stay up, in terms of what the team looks like at the beginning of next season, do you think it needs to be wholesale changes, or is it like keep the likes of Tom McIntyre and then add a lot of new players, like bring a couple through, bring in new players? What? So the first question is, do you think Reading are going to stay up?
I hope they do. I always hope
You got to say yes or no.
yeah, I do. I'm a until it says no, we're not, then I'll stay.
Yeah,
We're going to
I
stay up
do.
because,
I do,
but
Johnny.
it's not going to be enjoyable. But that's Reading. You never enjoy watching Reading at the minute, so we hope.
So what about in the summer? Let's say we've, I don't know, a scenario that is entirely possible. We stay up. We do like we did last season. We finish. I think we were three. Was it 3-4 points off the relegation zone?
Yeah, something.
So yeah, was it? We got 41 points, didn't we? And Derby were the top of the bottom three of
Yeah, it was comfortable in
37,
the end.
wasn't it? They got. So we were. I think we were 4 points. I think it's going to be something like that. I think it'll be 3 or 4 points. We don't know what's going to happen with the other teams. I'm not entirely sure what the latest is with Huddersfield and their situation. For
Ducked everyone points just to,
yeah, yeah. Um, but it is a bit worrying with obviously Blackpool had a great result, but then you look at a team like QPR, they've been in free, they've got
Yeah,
as bad a situation in terms of their results and their current form as Reading have.
Cardiff.
And then you look at the situation as a whole, you look at the form of the other teams. I think Reading are going to do slightly better than scraping safety. I think it's going to be a 3-4 point gap, something like that. And then, so you get to the summer. Do you have a clear out? Do you keep, 3 or 4 players like your McIntyres, people like that, and bring a couple of new players up from the under 23s or whatever, and then bring in like half a new team from outside? What would you like to see, Johnny?
Well, kind of already, you got some like Naby Sarr who think I signed a 4-year contract, and I'm kind of going that doesn't make any sense to me. It is in the team that the situation we're in. He was on a free transfer. Why are we offering a 4-year contract for a guy like that? And he's done okay. I'm not saying he's the best in the world, the worst in the world, but that to me already is like why, as a business sense, putting the money into a contract for a guy that is on a nice, comfy contract for 4 years. You want players that are hungry and whatever, and that's what we need at this time. You got Andy Carroll then, till the end of next season. Again, I'm kind of going. It's nothing personal about the players, but is that what we really need to be doing at the minute? But then on the side of that, then you've got guys like Yiadom signed a long contract. Again, is it because you can, because we have to? Is it because you need some security? I'm not saying they're the best players, the worst players, or whatever. But then in the summer, you've got the whole usual situation of all the loan players going back, the Hendricks, the Baba Rahman, the short term contracts, the Guinness Walkers. Is We could sit here and say one or the other over another, but it depends what we're allowed to play with money wise and market wise. And all that you want to see is a plan. Right, we need to get a small competitive squad of 18 first team players that are competitive. You've got players that you've identified that play a certain position. One thing we obviously do miss is a creative attacking midfielding kind of player like Swift. I'm not saying it's Swift. The young lad on loan from Chelsea's been good. He's a young player, but he's going back to Chelsea. That's not going to help us long term. We're in this situation where we're having to beg and borrow and use players for different things. I'm sure, Noel was saying to us the other day that there's 3 or 4 players in the under 23s that certainly first team squad players for the future, and that's great, and that's what it should be. But then it's kind of like a jigsaw, isn't it? Like with everything, you're looking at what left backs are a premium in any football team, trying to find someone that fits that role.
Yeah,
The biggest thing is, our defense has been woeful for years. We don't have we have leaders, but we don't have leadership, and we don't have. I don't know what it is. We ship goals again. I hate using the word about mentally weak as a team, but it's happened so often over so many years that when we crumble, and you're like, why is that? So there's that. You're looking as a club, you want different. you want the right people to lead the team. You want the right players in the right positions. It's not always easy said than
Yeah.
done. But if you went out and you went, right, this is what we've got, you go to other clubs and you identify as a player from, as we did, Nicky Shorey, say, was it Orient Reserves he came in, but it was some of these the scouts. We go back to the Brian McDermott, interviews. The scouting system hasn't been there. They're watching videos to identify players. You're getting random players in
And
from.
and you look at back to that 106 season. You mentioned Nicky Shorey. Obviously, Leroy Leiter's been a guest. He came from Bristol City, and Dave Kitson came from Cambridge United. There's a bit of a clue there, isn't there? So we could talk about this all night, Johnny. But I want to finish off because you might not realise it. We've actually been chatting for an hour already. Goes
Yeah.
quickly, doesn't it? But let's look at the next few games. So Bristol City away on April the 1st, which obviously is April Fool's Day. And then after that, it's Birmingham at home, followed by Preston away. And then after that, it's Burnley at home. But let's look at the next three games because that takes us up to Easter Monday. So Bristol City away, Birmingham at home, Preston away. Considering Reading's form, the last match against Hull, etc., what do you think is a realistic target for points from those three games? So Bristol City away on the 1st of April, Birmingham at home on Good Friday, and then Easter Monday, Preston away. What points tally do you want to see from that?
If I was being honest again, it depends how things materialise. I'd say 4 points. I'd go a win and a draw and a loss. That would be okay. The way the things are.
And
I
that
think
could be enough to keep us up, by the way.
yeah, and I think you're looking, the Birmingham beatable, Bristol City beatable, Preston beatable. Yeah, they're away games, but if there's a change of mindset and a change of leadership and a change of something, that you go to those games believing that you actually can get a point or a win.
Yeah,
They're beatable teams. Like we're not talking Burnley, we're not talking Blackburn, we're not talking Sheffield United. They're the teams that we should go out and get at least a point, like we did against Hull. We
yeah,
can get a win, but it's about how it's up there as a leadership group and as a team,
yeah.
and So that's realistically for me. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Well, I think that yes, it's a poor run. It's 1 point in 5 games, but at least there's a glimmer of hope there that our last game, our current run of form of the last one game was that we didn't lose. So we've broken that cycle, and maybe the fact that we got the goal from Andy Carroll, that's given the players a little bit of. Do you know what I mean? A little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
of
You've ended the break on a not as negative
yeah.
note. So you're
So
not
now,
going
so,
in.
so now we've got a little break. Next game, April the 1st. Um, I I think that we are going to be safe. I still think that. I think we're going to get enough points from the last 8 games to be safe. I kind of go along with what you said. If we get 3 points, whether it's one win or 3 draws, I think that will see us heading in the right direction towards staying up. So I'd have no preference for which game that comes in, but if we've added another 3 points by that third game on Easter Monday, then I think we're moving in the right direction towards staying up. So our next episode, Johnny, is tomorrow night, where we're shifting our focus to the Reading women. And our special guest is the lead WSL presenter for Sky Sports, Lindsay Hooper. So she's going to be talking about Reading season, about the Reading players, the manager, and so on. So we're having a bit of a change, a focus on the women for a change. So that's tomorrow night. And then we've got some great guests coming up. We've got Colin Lee as well. He's coming up very soon. So yeah, look forward to the next episode and onwards and upwards. Let's hope.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thanks for your time, Johnny. And
Guys.
I don't know if you've noticed, I've stopped saying "come on, you R's" because it was then followed by a defeat. So I've decided to stop saying it. I haven't got a match anytime soon anyway. So focus on the women tomorrow night, and then we'll look ahead to the next game on the 1st of April. So we'll still continue our efforts to bring you some great guests. And as ever,
Positivity.
you can contact us on at 1871 podcast on Twitter or Instagram. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll have a TikTok account. That's a possibility, I'm sure. And of course, you can find us on YouTube. You can actually watch the episodes now. And what I would say with that is we do know of at least one Reading fan who's either visually impaired or blind. I can't remember which, but you can get. We've got a deaf fan. It's the other way around. Sorry. So we've got a deaf fan, and on YouTube, you can select a transcript. So if you know any Reading fans who are deaf or hard of hearing, if you direct them to our YouTube channel, there's a transcript button there, so you can actually. It's like subtitles if you're watching a film in a foreign language. But even if you can hear fully, everything, then you can watch us on YouTube anyway if you just want to watch the episode rather than just listen to it. So the episodes are available on all podcast platforms, so Apple, Spotify, etc., and also now YouTube. So
There's no escaping us, Mark, is there?
no, and then like I say, let's see, we might be on TikTok at some point. Who knows?
Who knows?
All right, Johnny. Well,
Cheers.
enjoy the rest of your week, but I'll be seeing you no doubt tomorrow anyway for our special guest Lindsay Hooper on the next episode tomorrow.
Perfect. Look
So
forward to it, mate. As
speak to
always.
you then. Cheers,
Cheers,
Johnny.
mate. Bye
Bye.
bye.